Welcome back to the Qt Developer, or the Qt Developer, whichever one you prefer. Today, we're going to look at the QVarLengthArray. This one's a little tricky, but essentially, it's for allocating arrays on the stack, and anything that overflows, it will allocate on the heap. So let's go and take a look at some of the basics on how to use this. It's actually quite interesting. There's quite a few, it's pretty good documentation on it. We'll review appending, getting the back, iterating through the array, accessing data, checking first, front, the indexes, but let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing that I need to do, always make my includes. I will include the var length array. I will need a QIterator. I will also need a QDebug. So, the first thing, let's go. I think I'm going to initialize, and I'll use n, and I'll set that to 10. That'll be the number of items. The next thing I need to do is pretty much declare a QVarLengthArray. There we go. Now it is template driven, so I will make it an integer. I will also, you know what? That's all I'm going to do. Let's go ahead and create my iterator first. Get that out of the way. Now, I'll do a little copy paste. Copy this. I'll make another int. I'll be real creative, and I'll call it array. So now I'm going to populate the array. So why don't I go ahead and populate this array with 10 integers, which will be this number. But those 10 integers will be 10 through 100. So interesting ways in which we can actually allocate and give data to the array is with this little insertion operator. And this works actually quite well for all of Qt arrays, string lists, and so forth. I'll go ahead and keep going until, whoops, too many spaces, until I get to 90 and 100. Whoops. There. Okay, so now I have the allocation. So I think what I'd like to do now is I'm going to debug, put in a debug statement, just so I can keep track of what's going on. And I'll check the size of the array. And I'm going to check it before I actually call the next method, resize. Whoops. So I'm going to explore what happens once we resize. So there we go. Now what I'd like to do is I would also like to take the capacity of the array. Now the capacity will tell us how much you're able to actually put into the array. So capacity before resize. And I'll output the array dot capacity. And these are two pretty neat methods to call. The next thing I'll do is I'll actually iterate over the array and print out everything in the array. So I need to use the iterator, same as some of the other videos, exactly the same process. Put another space in here. So I'll set it to the beginning, and then I want to make sure the next step will be I'm going to continue forward until, not minus, should be equal. Continue until the end of the array, and then just increment the iterator. And I spelled that wrong. There. Now let's go ahead and actually debug the iterator. And I need to dereference it. There. Now, I think I'd like to test this out. Look, there it is. There's all the prints. The size before is 10. The capacity before resize is 256. Nice. So now I think it's time to make a test. Let's go ahead and actually resize the array. So, I need to spell it right. Well, not reserve, resize. There we go. And I'm going to make it n, which is this number up here, 10. Then I'll add an extra one. Then I'd like to take, actually, you know what? Let's do that. That's pretty good. What's the next step I want to do? I'd like to take the last item in the array and change its value. That's a good one. So how do I get the last? Well, let's call it last. If I do that and I set it to 120, that's the next step. I'd also like to replace the third item with a new number. So if I do array.replace, look what I can do. 3, 0. So that will replace the value of the third item to 0. Then I'd like to recheck again. So to save a little time, let's go ahead and copy and paste these two and save. Now, what do I want to do next? Let's go ahead, test it out. There we go. Look at this. Size before was 10. Oh, I should have said that's after. There. And that's after too. Do a little copy paste. There we go. So, before, and run that again. Just so it's clear. There we are. So before 10, after 11. Before is 256. After, it's still 256 because we didn't change anything. But you know what I didn't do? I didn't print out the next group of numbers. So before I do this, instead of printing it out using the iterator, I'll do a neat little trick. I like this about Qt. Qt C++ programming is wonderful. Now, I'm actually just going to print out the array. Let's see if it can handle it. No, it can't. That's too bad. Dot. I guess I can't do that. That stinks. Can I do this? I think I can. There. This is live programming right in front of you. Let's see what happens. I've never done that before. Didn't work. That's too bad. I guess I do have to iterate over it. Phooey. I've been foiled. See that? Live as it happens. So I'll go ahead and do this. Print it out again. So now, let's see if it changed. Let's see if the magic happened. It did. Look at this. After the third item, it made it 0. Right there. And 120. Wonderful. So, that worked. It's pretty good. See, I get to learn along as I go too. Usually, I can use a QDebug and output the container, and it will print it out. It must be different with the QVarLengthArray. That's interesting. All right. So, what do I have next? Well, what if I actually want to get the last index of the array? So let me go ahead and comment this stuff out. There we go. So what I want to do now is I want to get the last index. So I'll use another QDebug and could say last index of 50. Okay. And then I want to say output array dot last index of, and I want to give it 50. Too many parentheses. And there we go. Now, what do you think is going to happen? Does anybody know? Can you guess? Let's see. Look at that. The last index of 50. If we go look at 50, it's actually counting. This, 2, 3, 4, 5. But subtract 1 because it's 0 based. And you get 4. So you can give it the value and it will give you the index of what that value is. That could be pretty helpful. Now what I'd like to do is go ahead and comment that out. Now I'm going to actually remove an item, but I only want to remove one. So array dot remove 1. Look, I can remove 1. Now if I pass 0, let's go ahead and re-enable our iterator. There we are. And re-enable these. There we go. So we added an item, and what I'd like to do now is I'm going to iterate over it again. After I remove 1, and let's see what actually happens. Can you guess it? Can you guess what happens? Oh, you know what I should do? To make it a little easier. Do you remember the little trick we used? Remember Q, debug, to add a new line? Qt endl. There we are. So now we can add a new line. Nice. So let's go ahead, do this again. There, look at that. A little cleaner. Now, what did we do? Here's all the information. And here it is again, but what did we remove? Remember, we added 1 here. We added a 0. Now, we can't see it because I didn't print it out. But what if I change this? And I change it to 30. What'll happen then? So let's experiment now. Look what happened. 30 was removed. That's pretty neat. That's pretty interesting. So please leave your thoughts, your comments, and any future videos you'd like to see, any topics. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.